All right. So, welcome back. We have a star-studded panel of educators for you this afternoon. Um, I, you know, I've just been so excited for this moment. I have 50,000 questions I want to ask, but we're going to go ahead and let you all introduce yourselves. So, if you would, at this moment, just give your name, how long you've been in education, the courses you've taught, and the schools where you taught and or locations. So, we'll start with Mr. Fluellen.
All right. Good afternoon. Hopefully, my mic is working pretty well here. My name is Mr. Fluellen. I am an Atlanta native teaching at Douglas High School, where I also teach it. Where I also attended Frederick Douglass High School. Um, I teach mathematics and computer science and music technology and physics. Apparently, now we'll talk about that later. Um, yeah, it's been 10 years now in education coming from an engineering background. Uh, Exciting stuff. Yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it.
All right, thank you. And then if we can go to Lavita Williams.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lavita Williams. Current role is now the computer science specialist, working along Brian at the Georgia DOE. But previous to this, am a former computer science teacher, 17 years of teaching experience. While teaching computer science, I taught a variety of computer science courses that included the Intro to Digital Technology, APCS Principles, APCSA, Programming Games and Apps, and including a variety of other courses that came along the way while teaching computer science.
Thank you. And Mr. Stevens.
Hey everybody, my name is David. I've been teaching for 10 years, most recently taught at Drew Charter School in Atlanta, Georgia, taught computer science or AP computer science principles, web development, and I even taught middle school business and computer science as well. Loved it. It's amazing. And that's a little bit about me.
All right. And then next, we have Ms. Bentley. If you can share a little bit about yourself.
Principles, web
Hello,
development,
everyone.
and I even taught.
Can you hear an echo from me? Because I
science as well.
unfortunately want for myself.
Loved it. It's amazing, and that's.
Yes. So if you have another screen, if you can mute that screen.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Bettia Bentley. I am a teacher at Biggs Mill Middle School in Fayette County. I've been teaching for about 15, 16 years now. I'm also the CEO and founder of Max Burrell LLC.
Okay, thank you. And we still kind of hearing the echo a little bit as well. So I don't know if it's the speaker or what have you. And you might have to close the other tab. If you have two tabs open, you might have to close the other tab. Just FYI. Thank you. All right. So, first of all, I'm Sababu Chaka Barashango. For those who don't know, I'm a Constellations fellow, but I also was in the classroom I've been in education for 25 plus years, teaching different mathematics and computer science courses. When Ms. Williams was going down her list of courses, I was like, yeah, I remember all those courses. I had to see. Okay, but I don't want to take up all your time talking about me. But my next question actually is, who inspired you to become an educator and why or how? So we'll go with Ms. Williams.
Sure. My story is quite interesting. So I did not start in education. I graduated college with a CIS degree, decided to work for corporate America, where I was a systems analyst, living in Chicago. And so while working, I got rather bored while I was at work, sitting in my cubicle. And my manager at the time was like, hey, there's this program in schools, they're trying to find a way to, teach some of these inner city schools some technology, do you think you would like to do it? And I said, sure, not thinking that I would like to teach students, but thinking, oh, this is going to get me out of the office. So I ended up doing it. I went to about 2 or 3 schools in the Chicago inner city schools, and it was amazing. Like it was almost like I felt like my purpose was being fulfilled, and at that time, I knew at that moment that I needed to have a career change. My parents were not excited about that because obviously, with that career change came a pay change. But it did. I was inspired by their wanting to learn more and wanting to do better for themselves. And so actually those students from those schools actually inspired me to get into education.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. Mr. Stevens?
My answer isn't going to be cookie cutter. I don't think I was ever really inspired to get into education, to be honest. I started out as a pastor, and I didn't even really want to do that necessarily. But after years of doing it, I was like, wow, I see how much people's lives are changing by the things that we teach or we can teach. So I transitioned from that into computer science, which sounds like a hard shift, but I loved it. Like just seeing again, you can impact people's lives from an academic and even long-term a professional standpoint, giving them skills, abilities, knowledge, wisdom, all that kind of stuff, but even impact them from a social perspective and build relationships. So I would say, like, I wasn't inspired initially, but once I jumped into it, just seeing the change in people's lives really inspired me to keep going.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for the honesty. That's one of the things that creates good teacher community is honesty, because basically, even though we might have slight different experiences, we're all basically trying to do the same thing. Uh, Mr. Fluellen, your turn, sir.
Yeah, so I have a twofold family. Everybody either does engineering or education. So education was not on the table, as all of the educators were very limited in their descriptions of whether they enjoyed what they were doing or not. It's kind of like it was a necessity, and situations and conversations always started with those kids. And so it was like, yeah, I definitely don't want to do that. So of course I went to school for engineering initially. And I would do things like summer programs and mentors and things like that. And it was just like, okay, well, this is not terrible. Uh, but then comes a recession where every job in my city pretty much left, disappeared, dried up. And someone was like, hey, um, if you have this degree, we can give you a teaching position. I'm like, why would I want to do that? So, extra long story short, I taught the first year and was like, okay, this is not bad. The pay is terrible, but this is not bad. And I had a class where I was able to have a little kind of gray area, free range. And I taught the class through all application. All we did was apply the stuff that I was using the entire time. And somebody's like, oh my God, it's the best teaching in the world. I'm like, yeah, isn't all teaching this way? So I had like a big learning curve. But the inspiration truly came when that first class got to the end and they were using the same language I was using. Everything was like, okay, well, this is how we would use this in real life. And I was just like, okay, I did my job. I'm apparently good at what I do. And so the rest is history. It's been 10 years of doing that same kind of thinking and teaching. And the pay again is not quite what I used to make, but maybe after this next degree, I'll get back there.
All right, all right, all right. Yeah. So some good backstories from some of our educators and how they got into education or were inspired, and definitely students can definitely inspire you. They can be a challenge, but they can be inspirational as well. So it doesn't just go one way. So
Right.
appreciate those responses. So I'm gonna ask a more specific question. What makes, since you all are currently teaching computer science, or were teaching computer science, or still have your foot in computer science, what makes computer science so relevant and important for students and their future? And anyone can chime in at this point.
I think that the main importance is just being connected to the ever changing world. Like, it's not something that you can just omit. I guess during my younger years, 20 years ago in high school, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, you needed to know it, but you didn't necessarily have to know it. It was like kind of like that little balance. You can learn a little bit, then you're good. At this point, I think it's as mandatory to know as, say, the language classes. We have an ever changing population, and you should be learning another language because at some point you're going to have to communicate outside of your norm. So I see the computer science as being the same. At some point, you're going to have to program something or read something and make sense out of it, or think critically, or and all of the other skills that come along with computer science. So I see it as a tool of necessity just to stay a part of the changing and growing and progressing world around us.
Yeah, I can chime in. I also agree. I feel like, computer science is a part of their daily lives. Everything that they do, many of them wake up and it's touching a cell phone. And so I think it enables them to create new opportunities that maybe did not exist before. And it also allows them to, touch into problem solving, developing a skill set that can be useful in the workforce, as well as being able to look at computer science under a larger umbrella, computational thinking, automation. It just has so many different paths that, will help them in the future.
I don't have a whole lot to add because I feel like you both gave great answers, but I'll just say, like, it really is, it's really, really difficult to find an industry that lacks computers now. Pretty much any industry, whether it be art, music, corporate, like, it's just literally everywhere. And so, no, you may not take a computer science class in high school and get a computer science degree from Georgia Tech, but if you know a little something or a lot of something about computers, I really do feel like it sets you so far apart in whatever profession you end up going into.
Agreed. Mm-mm.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, my mic was muted. I was like, why is my mic muted? But then we asked the question of why is CS relevant and important to students? If you would like to answer that question.
CS is relevant and important to students because, as I explain to my students usually on the first day, there is no thread of our life that computer science has not touched or will not touch in some way. So starting off with career interest survey, they can soon discover, how computer science has impacted healthcare. If they're interested in healthcare, how has computer science affected agriculture, welding, different areas of life that they may be interested in, and that allows them to bring the relevant point of why we're studying and what we're doing with computer science, and where again we can take it. What if we're here now, we can see how it has progressed over time in the last 10 years, in the last 5 years, in those different areas. Where too can we take that innovative mind from just being a consumer to being a creator as it relates to computer science in any area?
Okay, thank you. That's actually a great segue into my next question. You were talking about student, relating computer science to the student interest. So my next question is, how have you employed student agency and student identity and or choice in your computer science classroom? And if anyone wants to take that, they can go ahead and take that.
I personally try to reach for everybody. So even though our computer science program is embedded in our STEM program, a lot of the students that thrive are seeking, like Miss Bentley mentioned, their interest, right? So one of my connections to grab another set of students is to pull them from my music technology course where they can use things um like the music program, which slipped my brain at the moment. Um,
Ear sketch.
Ear Sketch, that's it. I should have wrote that down. The Ear Sketch program, where the children get to program, but at the same time they're making music, something that every child in my building is absolutely attached to because they know somebody who knows somebody who knew somebody who went to a studio and made a few $1,000,000. So they're just like, wait, I can take this knowledge and I can immediately go and use it for. It's like yes, and it doesn't cost you anything. Another area that I pull from, we have a lot of young ladies that are interested in coding. And so we try some of the different programs that are out there to address that. And they like the idea that they're not by themselves. You know, typically some of the classes are 20%, 30%, 40% female. And so when they find out that there's entire programs completely dedicated to them being a part of computer science, they get excited about that. So we try to promote as much as possible to the non-normal, I hate to use that word, that's a terrible word, the non-traditional student to ensure that they also get to participate.
I guess I can just chime in. One thing that really sticks with me is I truly believe computer science is for all students. And I also believe that student voice and student choice is huge. So I would always try to make sure that, my main goal is building confidence in these students so that way they feel like, okay, I can do this. Yeah, I got it. But we would really reach out to, by me building the confidence within those students, they would then go out and be kind of the soldiers. They would reach to the other feeder schools and become mentors to the middle schools. Then the middle school students would then become mentors to the elementary schools. And not only, when I was in the classroom, did that help build my program, but, it was also a way to reach all students within a certain community and not have students feel the pressure of getting a grade. That was one thing about teaching AP that, sometimes I would be a little upset about because, sometimes students would be like, well, I just need an A. I just need to get those points for my GPA. But, to me, it's like, I really need you to learn the skill because this skill is going to help you long term. And once you're starting to drop those seeds to the younger students, it just continues to build that confidence. So that way, when when they get to high school or when, they won't be afraid to try a class or they'll be able to approach you and say, hey, do you want to start an after school club? And then they will just continue to share with those in their community.
One of the things that I began with is the career interest survey, as I mentioned before, and also their learning style interests. While it's important for me to know my students, I think it's really important for them at the middle school level to get to learn themselves as well. And it kind of builds in an appreciation for diversity and an expectation of inclusion whenever you start off with career interest survey and learning styles inventory. They learn what they're most attracted to, and then that's how we build in the relevancy of it. And once we identify that, then tapping into their choice and their voice, you begin to create assignments that's relevant in the classroom, again, towards the areas of interest, whether it is programming or coding, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's virtual reality, whether it's fashion, whether it's culinary. And then that becomes real for them. And once we do that, differentiation is almost automatic. Your creativity is going to shine in the process. It's going to shine in the content. It's going to shine in that productivity. And we should celebrate their creativity. I think for far too long, our students have come into our classrooms with the notion of that their end product should be perfectly like the person next to them, and trying to transform that thought of, I don't want to see that duplicated. I don't want this to be regurgitated. I want your creativity. I want your voice. I want what's important to you. What makes this stand out for you? And again, just celebrate them whenever they do that, because once you do that, it's not going to look like the next person, but they realize that what they bring to the table is of worth. It is of value. It will be appreciated. And where it may not go mainstream, so to speak, there is a certain part of the population that's going to be attracted to what they present, because their particular gift is going to make room for them. And that's who they were supposed to reach. And that's who they were supposed to attach to. Also, implementing diverse perspective. I think code.org videos are an excellent way to do that. You have sports figures, you have people who are in entertainment, you have people who may have pink hair and purple hair and piercings, and giving them an opportunity to not just see and hear about the advantages of CS through you, but people that they can also relate to, people that may look like them, people that may sound like them, people that may speak in their native language. Again, to celebrate those diverse perspectives, and to ensure that everyone understands that it is equitable, it should be equitable, and everyone does have an important viewpoint and an important voice.
Whew, that was amazing. I'm like, I shouldn't even talk after that, but I'll try. So, when I'm thinking, like, as a teacher in Georgia, I've got a lot of different things. I've got the standards that the state gives me. I have the expectations of administration. If I teach an AP class, I've got College Board saying things, and none of it's bad. It's all really good. But me as the teacher, I take all these things. I also have several different curriculum that I can choose from. I take all these things and I say, okay, these are all guides, these are all rules, these are all standards. How do I give them now freedom to be like, okay, we have, and by the way, Drew's a project-based school, so a lot of what we do is project-based. And so I say, okay, with these standards, how can I give them an opportunity to make it real to their world when it comes to whatever project they're creating? And so I think, unfortunately, sometimes a lot of students grow up in an atmosphere, kind of like Miss Bentley was mentioning, where it's like, you've got to do this thing and it has to have A, B, C, D, and E, and it's got to look all uniform all throughout. And so a lot of my students, when the semesters start or when the school years start, they're like, Mr. Stevens, is it okay if? And I would, rather than just say yes or no, because again, I'm just teaching them to follow orders, I would kind of bounce a question back off of them. Well, does it help you accomplish whatever it is you're trying to accomplish? And then I'm like, yeah, go for it. Some students, I would have them maybe create a Google slide to show whatever. And they're like, Mr. Stevens, is it okay if I make, a video instead of a Google slide? I'm like, absolutely. And then all of a sudden, before I know it, they didn't just make a little 1-minute movie. They made a whole like cartoon production thing that was like 5 minutes long, and it animates. And I'm like, I have no idea how you did that, but that's awesome. And I think, giving students opportunities to not just learn and produce and create what we're trying to get them to create, but let them do it in a way that like exposes and expresses their gifts and their skills that they've already learned from, being a baby up until this point.
That's great. And one more thing I would like to add to that, get their feedback. If we're going to really make this about student choice and about student voice, we can't be afraid to get that student feedback to say, I thought this was boring as all outdoors. This sucked. I mean, we have to be able to, again, change our mindset of they're just, they're not wanting to do this or they don't like it, to changing the conversation to what would make this interesting for you? If you had the option to design this activity or project, what would that look like? And then again, bringing that student in as a co-designer. What would that look like for a student who has your interests, who has your experiences or your background? What would something engaging look like for them in the concept of this particular standard?
Oh, awesome. Yeah, right. Awesome. Use that feedback, use that data from the students. Let the students be part of the lesson planning. Let the, and then see how the students reflect upon when you gave the lesson and assessments. Can some of the assessment questions, formative assessment or, summative assessment, can they be a little open-ended where it's not just one just strict answer or what have you? Because what part of the purpose is we want the students to be able to think constructively for themselves. So, awesome, awesome, awesome. Man, it's like time going by so fast. I have so many other questions I want to ask. Okay, I'll ask you this. Okay, in your CS program, what can you give me a challenge you had and how you and or your students and or your team overcame that challenge? Okay, let's go with Mr. Fluellen. I see a hand. Yes, you, sir.
Sorry. I was saying that my challenges are like, that big. There's always something going on at my school. One challenge particularly, well, let me take that back. The first challenge was, of course, access, so that kids could do something at home instead of just being able to do things at school. So through a couple of different grants, we were able to give everybody a laptop to be able to work on things at home. Another large challenge that we had, which followed, was of course internet access. Like, hey, I could do this in a sandbox or program or applet or something, but being able to connect to the internet was, something we needed. And of course, the pandemic helped spread that even more necessity for having those things. But I think class-wise, the biggest challenge that I've had thus far um, was current and relevant examples. And so, what I did to address that was spend time talking with my mentors and then trying to incorporate as much exchange between myself and class and professionals to say, hey, we're only touching the surface of this one little topic or standard. How does that apply in what you actually do on a regular basis? And so once the kids were able to have that conversation and see, what they were learning and what it led to, it just changed the morale and, the respect of what they're actually being taught.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bentley, did you want to go next?
Sure. The challenge for me was engagement and achievement, more so engagement. There's so many wonderful opportunities and resources out there available, like code.org, like Scratch, like CodeHS, where students can kind of get onto these turnkey types of systems and be able to produce and create. However, for our students who are not innate to technology and coding and programming in that way, we had to develop a system, so to speak, to get everybody engaged so that everybody could achieve at a level of mastery and understanding as it relates to the standards. So developing that system where, you don't just come in every day and get onto this particular network, being able to diversify that and give them options and being able to put in different opportunities for them to express mastery, not just in this particular system, but what does it look like whenever you're differentiating between input and output? What does it look like whenever you're differentiating between different programming languages? How would you evidence mastery of that or understanding of that? As Mr. Stevens pointed out, being able to utilize comics instead of just a journal. And then again, coming up with a system throughout the week where it's not just one particular thing all day, every time I come into your class, but I know that I'm going to have opportunities to express myself in written form. I'm going to have an opportunity to express myself through a graphic organizer or by creating a video or, different ways that would appeal to me to evidence my mastery of that. So the challenge was to create that engaging environment for achieving, whether it was virtual, coming through COVID, or whether it was face-to-face, brick and mortar. And and working again with the students and getting that feedback. What is enough for me to come in and say, this is going to be a work day, or when would be a good time for me to bring in unplugged activities, and when should we just turn everything off and just have a talk about, the social impacts of computer science and technology in our world now, and what are some of your concerns and things of that nature. Just taking time to just connect with them. All of that builds into the engagement. And once you can get students engaged, once you can get them relevant, rigor is no problem at all. Achievement, they're going to want to achieve because they understand, again, the value of their choice as well as their voice.
That's good. I think for me, when I first started at Drew, it was like I started halfway into the year. So one of the challenges that I like immediately saw right away is just there wasn't really much like I want to be in computer science culture in the school. Like it was kind of like, oh, that's kind of for the stereotypical computery type kids. So I'm not about that life. Um, so the way I addressed it was I tried to be more than just a computer science teacher to a lot of the students. Like when I had planning breaks, I'm walking over to the gym. I'm playing basketball with the kids for a few minutes. I'm sitting in the bleachers, getting in their lives. And it's not like I had this ploy, like, let me just sit down so I can recruit some computer science students, but like show them that I genuinely care about them as a person. Like, oh, okay, Mr. Stevens, I guess he's cool. I'll give him a shot. And then, they come in my class like, wow, and then you see like their eyes open, like, wow, I can code and this is cool. And, it's not just, it doesn't just belong to one type of person in the world, and my ideas matter and all those types of things. So I think really what helped us to overcome at Drew this challenge of like not a whole lot of people being interested to start with was really just like being more than a computer science teacher, but being that teacher who shows up in the hallways, in other classrooms. Even after school, I would sometimes be involved in extracurricular activities and even being involved in their personal lives as much as they wanted me to be. I felt like that's how we helped to overcome that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Williams, did you want to add? Did you have anything to add? Okay. All right. So in the interest of time, I think I'm only going to ask 2 more questions. But so the next to the last question that I'm going to ask, and you all are giving some tremendous responses, so I do appreciate it, and see how many of your responses actually align with the other responses that we are getting. So for those that have experience in coaching or being coached, I know we had a theme today about coaching. How has coaching impacted your professional growth and experiences in the computer science classroom?
Full stop. My coaching, regardless of who has been coaching, but all of the coaches, so to speak, have changed everything. Like when I first inherited the class because the previous teacher retired, um, my knowledge base was limited to whatever I had been playing with or college classes many moons ago. And so just knowing what I needed to be teaching was a big help because it was kind of like, hey, by the way, you're going to be teaching this class this year. Okay, that's another on top of the 3 classes I was already teaching. Thank you. Okay. But the coaching has kind of, allowed me to be a little more at ease, comfortable around, not just my knowledge base, but the growth of my knowledge base. And then it was also beneficial in trying to, I guess, masterfully relate the information to the students. So with mathematics and music tech, those things are like secondhand knowledge to me, whereas the computer science was not. And I'm still growing on that, but just the pedagogy behind it and the whys and the hows and the little details and the unplugged activities, all of those things were uh, extended to me through the coaching process. And then the feedback, like, hey, this is what we did. This was great. Uh, Here's how I may have done it, or here's how we can make this same activity, great activity. We can make the same activity more impactful to reach more people. So it's been quite an exciting experience and growth for myself as well as my students.
I'll say for me, I'll kind of speak on the side of being a coach a little bit. When my 2 of my 3 years at Drew, I was a basketball coach as well. And if you're into basketball at all, you know the NBA Finals just ended. The Warriors beat the Celtics, all that kind of stuff. But if you watch both coaches on both benches, they have one goal. They want their team to win. I think sometimes we get coaching a little twisted and we think like coaching is about you trying to get your people to do what you're trying to teach them. And yeah, that's a part of it, but ultimately you want them to win. And so I think like bringing that idea of like coaching in the sports world into the classroom sometimes, like as a coach or as a teacher, my ultimate goal is like I want the students to win in life. I want them to win in this class. So I'm not coming in here just trying to teach standards and make it difficult for them and like hope you can figure it out, but like let me teach you, let me guide you, let me point you in certain directions and certain resources, because ultimately as a teacher or as a coach, whatever you want to call me, I want you to win. Like I want, like I'll literally tell, yes, Stacy, yes, I will. I will literally tell my students, like when they're graduating from Drew, I'm like, hey, just remember me when you got all the followers and all the, like, not that I need money or anything, but just because like I expect you to win. Not that I'm putting pressure on you, but like you're gonna kill it in life. And that's what I want. And then on the flip side, being coached, I think a great coach wants to be coached as well. Like the greatest coaches never stopped learning the game or never stopped learning the curriculum or the academics or whatever the case would be. And so it's one of the reasons I would go to these Constellations gatherings, conferences, is like I learned so much from people who have way more years of experience, way more environments that they've sat in than I have. And so I can get so many different ideas that I wouldn't just have on my own.
I saw you, Miss Williams. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw Miss Williams coming off. Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Batia.
I'm definitely going to piggyback off of Mr. Stevens there. The basketball analogy is perfect. I'm a product of being coached, and I'm also a promoter of coaching. As a teacher coming into the classroom, first year teacher, career changer, it was very beneficial for me to have that mentor on site whose classroom I can go into and see how they kind of transition from one activity to the other, how they engage with students, because it's a lot different than engaging with adults. And just watching that firsthand and how that flows. As a promoter of coaching, that's one of the things that my company focuses on, is coaching other teachers. And the thing that I enjoy most, like Mr. Stevens said, is helping them to win, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in life, helping them to win, getting them to that aha moment of self-esteem where I can do this. It's not about me giving you my lesson plan for computer science. It's about teaching you how to lay up. It's about teaching you how to dunk this. It's about teaching you different strategies of this particular game so that we can win the championship, which is to help our students to be successful, which is to help them connect with careers that will take them places that they didn't even dream about. So being a product of coaching and being a promoter of coaching, creating a company that focuses on that to build capacity, to build the knowledge, skills, and ability, but at the same time, build that self-confidence, build that self-esteem, show them and model what lifelong learning looks like. I may not have the answer. This is what I do whenever I need the answer. This is how I validate that. This is how I apply that. So I'm all for coaching.
I agree. And it's okay to not always know the answer, and I think with coaching, as I've coached teachers and I've, facilitated a lot of different workshops, and I think that they just need that support. They need to feel that sense of community. Often they're the only one in their building, and they need to have that support, ongoing support, so that way they will be encouraged to know that they can win and their students will be successful.
Right. And then I know one of the statements earlier today was coaching is not just for new teachers. Coaching is for those rock star teachers as well with long-term experience. Everyone can use a coach to improve in some area or another. My last question is, how can we grow more equitable computer science programs in the schools?
I can speak to that. At least for my school. My school, all of them have different Chromebooks, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's charged, sometimes it's not. Sometimes this platform works on that Chromebook, but not that Chromebook, and it's like, man, by the time we've troubleshooted everything, and so what I would try to do a lot for the people in my classrooms is really just talk to administration about it. Hey, if not in a like attitudey or punk kind of way, but like, hey, one of our desires is equity here at this school. And here's where I feel like we're falling short. And here's where I think, don't just tell them where we're falling short, but give them some solutions. Here's where I think things could really like be taken to the next level. And it was so cool. I didn't get solutions right away, but after about a year and a half or two, my school bought 30 MacBooks for all of my students to use between every class, and I had my own cart. So like they had these high powered machines that could do a lot of different things. So I think just looking at for us, looking at what's the actual technology that we have to use. You say you want a great computer science program. I think this is one of the things it's going to take, and I feel like that they even look at their investment and say, wow, that was worth it, and it's really paid its dividends.
I I agree with that, Mr. Stevens. I went a slightly different route though. I stopped asking for funding and just asked for permission. And that changed a few things in my school. So it used to be, oh, well, we don't have the funds for that. I didn't ask you that. Can we do this? And as soon as I got yes, cool, I went and talked to everybody, whether it was the alumni community, whether it was donors choose, whether it was anybody that was handing out funding. And here's what it did: when they saw other people funding the programs that we have and saw that money was coming in, they wanted to be a part of it because it's like, wait, so you don't really. Oh, okay. Well, we'll match whatever they bring in. Okay, so now they wanted to participate, and that just allowed me to, get that extra buy-in from those naysayers who were hung up on how much something was going to cost. So the very last one that I did, um, it was some calculators that we needed for a class. Um, I found the money for 15, and then the school bought the other 15. So it's like, well, we're not going to be outdone. So yeah, that's just a aspect of the same thing. Just sometimes you have to navigate around folks who want to hang up on funds. Like, no, if you want this program, if you want the success of what we're doing, I'll figure out how to fund it. You just tell me that it's okay, and you're going to support whatever it is that we're doing.
I just want to chime in and say that don't be afraid to speak with your school counselors. I know before I started teaching computer science at my former school, it was like a certain type of student. However, once I had a long conversation and kind of educated my school counselors on, you know, computer science and how all students should be able to have access, it drastically changed in my the diversity drastically changed inside of my classroom, as well as exposing them to uh, you know all different types of people who work in the various types of careers.
Fortunately, I've worked with very very wonderful students in rural Georgia and wonderful students in very affluent communities. And as the colleague said today, all of them basically talked about problem solving. Again, modeling problem solving, whether you need the funds or whether you need the idea or whether you need the students, and being able to first identify the problem. What is the challenge in my particular community? And if it is the funding, get the funding. If it's the students, being able to have that conversation with the guidance counselors or with the principal or with whoever's setting or creating the schedules and letting them know that I want every type of student that we have in this building represented in class. I don't want just the typical or what you would think the typical CS student looks like. I want every student represented, because it's at that point when we're intentional, even in the planning process, we can create that equitability. If we're trying to create that after the classes have been formed, then we're already, so to speak, behind the 8 ball on that. We need to be intentional with the planning. We need to be intentional with the approach. Intentional with what we present to the classes. If we want them to understand that CS is equitable, then what we present to them should show a diversity of equitability throughout CS. We should show different occupations. We should show different genders doing maybe non-gender type of activities. We should show different types of perspectives and different way people present themselves in the field of computer sciences and capitalize on that. And then we'll be able to use also student data, getting the students involved, using that feedback whenever they told you work worked well for them, work didn't work well for them, what would they enjoy seeing in their computer science program. So it's not just your voice. This is now the voice of me as well as the whole stakeholders, basically, especially the students who this is going to impact, and their impact in turn affects our impact, what they're going to do with what they learn with computer science, what they're going to do with what they learn with cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. If we can tap into that from the very beginning and be intentional about what the landscape looks like in our classroom, then we can cultivate that so we can get the harvest that we desire.
Thank you. Sorry, somebody was trying to call me on the phone. I'm like, I'm in a conference. Thank you very much. I do have many more questions, but to respect people's time, could you all put your contact information in the chat? And if some of the audience members and participants have further questions or would like to connect, because one of the things I believe that's important also, I think I mentioned it already, is teacher community, trying to build that teacher community, trying to network. And I believe we do have some more prizes that are coming up. But yeah, I wanted to thank each and every one of you for sharing your personal experiences and your suggestions for the questions that I have asked and for the issues that were raised. So thank you. Asante Sana, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.